Today it's going to be about Jonathan Swift, the famous writer whose Gulliver's Travels have the unique distinction of being read as a children's book. Well, you can give the story of a huge person, that is an average human, going into a land where the people are like this, 6 inches in size, and you can pass it off as a children's book or a fable or a fantasy meant for children. And on a totally different parallel plane, that is, you will find that this very same book that goes by the name of a children's book can also be read as the greatest satire on humankind ever written. Such was the genius of Jonathan Swift. Now, before I go into specifics of his life or his works, I am once again consulting the Wikipedia, and the Wikipedia page on Mr. Swift, at the very bottom of the page there's a there's a section called Legacy. That is, what has Mr. Swift left for us in the literary sense, that is. So here it's written, this is from the Wikipedia page on Swift. John Ruskin named him as one of the 3 people in history who were the most influential for him. George Orwell named him as one of the writers he most admired, despite disagreeing with him on almost every moral and political issue. Now, George Orwell was always very, very political, and he differed. That's his own saying, that he differed with the viewpoints of Mr. Swift on almost every political issue. But even then, he is the most admired. Modernist poet Edith Sitwell wrote a fictional biography of Swift titled I Live Under a Black Sun. Swift crater, a crater on Mars's moon Deimos, that is the Mars planet has one of the moons of the Mars is called Deimos. It's Phobos and Deimos, 2 moons for Mars, is named after Jonathan Swift, who predicted the existence of the moons of Mars. So he was quite a bit of an astrologer. I'm not sure whether it's astrologer or astronomer. I might have made a mistake, but he was a man who, he had an interest in space exploration too. In that age, that is 17th century, it's the end of the 17th century, and even at that point of time, Mr. Swift, that is the Dean of St. Patrick's Cathedral in Dublin, he had an interest in outer space. And here it is written, that is in the Wikipedia it is written, he predicted the existence of the moons of Mars, and a crater on the Mars's moon Deimos is named after Swift. It's called the Swift crater, that is. Now here's a bit of specifics about Jonathan Swift, and it's once again I am with the Wikipedia. Jonathan Swift, the dates are mentioned there. I am not going to the dates. Actually, there's no point with dates because his writing is basically timeless. Was an Anglo-Irish satirist, essayist, political pamphleteer, first for the Whigs, then for the Tories, that is the 2 parties of that time in England, poet and cleric, who became the Dean of St. Patrick's Cathedral, Dublin, hence his common sobriquet, Dean Swift. He was always called the Dean. That is, there is even a poem which is about the death of Dean Swift. that was written by Swift himself. He is writing his obituary when he was still alive. That is something you don't get to see in a lot of people. That is writing his obituary when he was alive. And this kind of you might say it's in I don't have anything good in English. This kind of beporwa, this is some kind of a actually he didn't care simply. That's all I can say. I'm stuttering a bit because I simply can't sort of find the words with which to describe him. Now whenever I think of Jonathan Swift, the first thing that comes to my mind is that it's a very simple thing, that is, how can we classify him? Because he doesn't want to be classified as anything. Of course, classification is a kind of regimentation which it's better not to put upon a poet or a writer of Swift's caliber. But it's simple. I simply cannot classify him as anything. He's a genius, that is. And what about his comic genius? He's a satirist, everything. Yeah. Well, at the end of the para, that's the first para in the Wikipedia page, I am reading it to you verbatim. His deadpan, ironic writing style, particularly in a modest proposal, has led to such satire being subsequently termed Swiftian. That is, this is a special branch of satire which is called Swiftian. It's simple. That is, Mr. Swift has actually sort of given birth or somehow engendered a special class of satire which is Swiftian satire. That's quite an honor. That is, if you are naming a branch of literature in someone's name, that means it is a kind of uniqueness that almost nobody can match right out. So that is quite an honor. Now, the two words given here, that is the deadpan and ironic. Now, deadpan needs a bit of explanation. Once again, I am following the hyperlink. Deadpan, dry humor, deep pan, or dry wit humor. 4 names for this very same thing. Deadpan or dry. I must let's stick to dry humor. It's not dry like it's sort of devoid of water or desiccated or without gravy. It's not dry chili chicken. That is, the dry adjective actually signifies something else. Deadpan, dry humor is the deliberate display of a lack of or no emotion. Well, it's a bit problematic for me, this kind of shuttlecocking like this from the camera to the computer screen. I'm reading it once again. Is the deliberate display of a lack of or no emotion, commonly as a form of comedic delivery to contrast with the ridiculousness of the subject matter. Now, let me get this straight. Deliberate display of lack of or of no emotion. How? That is, how do we display emotion? Say, I am talking about a very ridiculous subject. Now, if it's ridiculous, then I must betray a smile or a wink or a giggle or laughter. That is, I am also amused by it. Since I am dealing with something ridiculous, something very funny, I am supposed to be amused by it. But while I am writing about that thing or talking about that thing or acting that thing or sort of just lecturing about that thing, I display a total lack of emotion. That is, the subject matter has no effect on my way of delivery. In that way, suppose I am stating something very, very sad without a single tear or a single word of pain or a single indication of sorrow on my face. That's deadpan. It's very simple. That is, whatever you are delivering in your writing or your speech or your lecture, the subject matter has no effect on the way you are talking or you are writing. Suppose I am writing about something very cruel, very heinous, very disgusting, in a way in which we report something very simple. If that's not it, that is what I am meaning it is that suppose, well, let's it's a lot of thing actually. It's, sort of, this explanation doesn't get you anywhere. It might be a bit easy if I sort of think about, go back to the line and see what exactly did Swift say. Now, his deadpan ironic writing, the Swiftian style, it's associated with a book or a pamphlet called A Modest Proposal. Now, if we get an inkling about the things that are said in a modest proposal, it might be possible to understand what the deadpan kind of thing is actually. The full title of Jonathan Swift's Modest Proposal is something like this. I am reading it to you from Wikipedia once again. A modest proposal for preventing the children of poor people from being a burden to their parents or country and for making them beneficial to the public. In Bengali, that is, একটি প্রস্তাব, যে প্রস্তাবের ফলে গরিব মানুষের ছোট ছোট বাচ্চারা নিজেদের বাবা মায়ের উপরে এবং দেশ ও দশের উপরে বোঝা হয়ে না চেপে মানুষের কাজে লাগবে. So what do you think of this? Now this might actually come to you, or it might seem like a government report or a proposal by a sociologist or a social scientist who really wants to ease the burden, if children are a burden, that is. I am not sure whether we can call children burden upon their parents and country, because children are the future. Anyway, but this is Swift, so we don't have to go into specifics of this kind of things are right or wrong, or that is. This is Swift. So this is Swiftian kind of way. The title seems like it's a scientific report or a sociological kind of report, or it's a kind of sort of research proposal by a social scientist. That is a modest proposal which is to the point that the children of poor people, the children who are very hard to maintain by poor parents, they might cease to be the burden of their parents and be useful to the public and society and country as a whole. Very good. So what can a proposal like that be? Just try to think. It's simple. That is, what kind of proposal can that be? It must be something very good. That is some sort of rehabilitation, some sort of sort of economic package, some sort of social package which will help these children to grow up and sort of become useful members of society, so that they don't become a burden, within quotes, a boja to their baba ma and সমাজ and দেশ ও দশ. হতেই পারে একটা কোনো ইকোনমিক প্যাকেজ বা একটা কোনো ইকোনমিক আইডিয়া বা একটা কোনো সোশিওলজিক্যাল আইডিয়া, যার ফলে এই বাচ্চারা দেশ এবং দশের উপকারে লাগবে, লোকের ঘাড়ে চেয়ে বসবে না। So what exactly is the proposal? Therein lies the kind of deadpan irony which Mr. Swift is famous for. So the essay actually suggests a proposal which will situate or locate or transport the writer to the deepest pit of hell, that is. So what exactly is the proposal? I'm once again reverting to Wikipedia. The essay suggests, the date is 1729 and a huge famine, একটা বিশাল দুর্ভিক্ষ was raging in Ireland. People are dying out of starvation. So it was not easy to maintain children in those days. That is, if we can use the word maintain for children. The essay suggests that the impoverished Irish might ease their economic troubles by selling their children as food to rich gentlemen and ladies. This satirical hyperbole mocked heartless attitudes towards the poor as well as British policy towards the Irish in general. মুদ্রা কথা আবার বাংলাতেই বলা ভালো। প্রপোজালটা হচ্ছে এটা যে আমাদের রাইটার মিস্টার জোনাথন সুইফট উনি বলছেন যে ওনার মনে হয়েছে যে এই দুর্ভিক্ষের সময়ে মানুষ যেখানে খেতে পাচ্ছে না সেখানে উনি বলছেন আইরিশরা, অর্থাৎ যাদের দেশে দুর্ভিক্ষ চলছে, তারা তাদের ছেলে মেয়েগুলোকে, বাচ্চাগুলোকে, শিশুগুলোকে খাবার হিসাবে বিক্রি করুক ধনী জেন্টলম্যান এবং লেডিসদের কাছে। এতে সেই বাচ্চারা খাবার হিসাবে দেশ ও দশের কাজে লাগবে আর বাবা মায়েরও দু পয়সা আয় হবে। This is what is called hyperbolic satire. This is what is called cannibalism. And this is what makes Jonathan Swift a genius in satire. This is the deadpan style. This is the style in which Mr. Swift betrays no single emotion while talking about something that's very, very emotional. You are suggesting cannibalism. You are suggesting taking away of children from their parents and selling them for food. And you are writing it up as a modest proposal. অত্যন্ত বিনয়ের সঙ্গে দেওয়া একটি প্রস্তাব, a modest proposal. Just think of it, the title, a modest proposal. This is Jonathan Swift, our dear Dean of St. Patrick's Cathedral. I am saying all this just to let you know the kind of style, the stylization, and basically the kind of genius that Mr. Swift is. And when we go into Gulliver's Travels, kindly remember that this is the style of writing that you are going to be acquainted with. This much for Mr. Swift and his style. We'll get back to you with Gulliver's Travels very soon. In the meantime, keep studying and always remember, knowledge must prevail. That's all.